The Galactic Council's security checkpoint on Station Terminus 7 had never experienced such chaos. Commander Zixthar, a towering Krell warrior with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian, stood frozen in disbelief as three small furry creatures scampered past his boots, each wearing one of his subordinates' ceremonial helmets. "Explain this," Zixthar demanded, his translator barely containing the growl in his voice. The human ambassador, Dr. Sarah Chen, stood nearby with her arms crossed, watching the scene with what the Krell had learned to recognize as barely suppressed amusement. Her eyes tracked the creatures as they tumbled over each other, the oversized helmets clanking against the station's polished floor. "Those are Vexian cubs," she said calmly. "They're curious. It's part of their development." "Development?" Zixthar's crest flared. "They have stolen military equipment. This is a breach of Protocol 17 through 34. Three of his guards stood helmetless, their face tendrils quivering with embarrassment. The cubs had somehow managed to remove the secured headgear in less than 30 seconds, a feat that should have been biologically impossible for creatures without opposable thumbs. "They'll give them back eventually," Sarah said, pulling out a small device and checking something on its screen. "Probably in an hour or two. An hour? Maybe 3. Depends on when they get bored." Zixthar had commanded security forces across 12 systems. He had faced down raiders, pirates, and once even a rogue AI collective. Never had he felt so thoroughly undermined as he did in this moment. Watching a creature no larger than his forearm drag a helmet twice its size into a ventilation grate. "Ambassador Chen, with respect, your species' approach to order is, disturbing." Sarah finally looked at him directly, and Zixthar saw something in her expression that made his combat instincts tingle. It wasn't aggression exactly. It was confidence. "Commander, let me tell you about Earth's child-rearing practices," she began, moving to lean against a nearby pillar. "Most species in the galaxy keep their young isolated, protected, controlled. They mature them in chambers or designated creche zones, clean, organized, safe." "As it should be," Zixthar interjected. "Humans don't do that. We let our children explore, touch things, break things, get hurt within reason. We let them test boundaries because that's how they learn where the boundaries are." One of the cubs emerged from behind a cargo container, helmet askew on its head, chittering with what could only be described as joy. It spotted the group of adults and immediately reversed course, disappearing again. "Your point being?" Zixthar asked. "My point is that humans have been dealing with curious, boundary-testing younglings for our entire evolutionary history. Not just our own children. We domesticated wolves into dogs, wildcats into house cats, and dozens of other species that most civilizations would have considered untamable." She gestured toward where the cubs had vanished. "The Vexians reached out to the Council 3 months ago. They're a young species, just achieved interstellar flight, but they're struggling because their cubs are intense. High energy, incredibly curious, no respect for authority. Sound familiar?" Zixthar's translator made a sound suspiciously like a sigh. "You're comparing them to human children. I'm saying we understand them. The Council was ready to write the Vexians off as too chaotic for membership. But Earth volunteered to mentor them because we recognize something of ourselves in their species." A small head poked out from behind a nearby bench, then another. The cubs had regrouped and were clearly planning their next move. 3 helmets still firmly in their possession. "This is unacceptable," Zixthar stated, though with noticeably less conviction than before. Sarah pushed off from the pillar and started walking toward the cubs. Zixthar and his guards tensed, hands moving toward weapons, ready to protect the ambassador from what their training identified as unpredictable wildlife. She sat down on the floor. The commander blinked all 3 of his eyes in sequence, certain he was experiencing a translator malfunction. The human ambassador, representing one of the Council's most powerful species, was now sitting cross-legged on the station floor like a... The cubs approached cautiously. Sarah didn't reach for them or make demands. She simply pulled out a small, shiny object from her pocket. Zixthar's tactical analysis identified it as a basic nutritional bar wrapper and began folding it into shapes. The metallic crinkling sound drew the cubs closer. Within minutes, she was surrounded. The cubs climbed over her legs, investigated her hair, and yes, eventually placed the helmets on the ground beside her as they became more interested in the wrapper and the shapes she was creating with her hands. Sarah stood, brushing off her uniform and handed the helmets back to the guards. See, eventually, Zixthar stared at the returned equipment, then at the cubs now playing peacefully with a piece of trash, then back at the human. Your species once said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, he said slowly. I am beginning to think the same is true of your parenting techniques. Sarah smiled. Commander, humans spent thousands of years figuring out how to coexist with creatures that could kill us. Bears, wolves, big cats. And more importantly, we learned to coexist with our own young who are born helpless and take years to mature. That kind of extended childhood created something unique. Patience, adaptability, and the ability to find order in chaos. The galaxy needs more order, not less, Zixthar argued, but weakly. The galaxy needs both, Sarah countered. It needs species like yours to maintain structure and security, but it also needs species who understand that sometimes chaos isn't a threat. It's just youth finding its way. The Vexians will mature just like their cubs will. They just need someone who won't give up on them after the first stolen helmet. One of the cubs chirped and headbutted Sarah's leg affectionately before scampering off to rejoin its siblings. Zixthar watched them go, then looked at his guards. Note in the report, security protocols adequate. Incident resolved through diplomatic intervention. Recommend continued human oversight of Vexian integration. As Sarah walked away, Zixthar heard her mutter under her breath. Wait until he finds out they also stole his comm unit. The commander's hand went immediately to his belt. Empty. In the ventilation shaft above, 3 cubs chittered with laughter.